Yep, and I'm always than you think. Mario 64 turns 30 years old this year, so I was like, well, there's no better time to play for the first time than right now. As a kid, I only owned a PS2 and mostly played on PlayStation for my whole life, so I have very limited experience with Nintendo games in general, but specifically with the Mario franchise. I heard really cool things about Odyssey, Galaxy, Sunshine, and obviously Mario 64, but I never really got around to playing them. I did play Odyssey for the first time earlier this year and I thought it was excellent, and that made me even more interested in seeing where the 3D era of the Mario games started. So with my limited knowledge on the franchise, while I did hear how revolutionary this game was, I didn't realize the full historical and gameplay effect it had on the rest of the industry for decades to come. Mario 64 was the first game in the franchise to shift from the traditional 2D perspective to a 3D perspective. While traversing 3D environments is something we take for granted in the modern gaming landscape, you have to take into account that before the release of the N64, analog sticks were not the norm in home consoles. Instead, D-pads were the norm. While D-pads are actually very effective for traversing 2D environments because you only have to travel horizontally or vertically, they become quite tricky for 3D environments because you require 360-degree movement. So lead designer Shigeru Miyamoto and his team had a seemingly impossible task. To transform a franchise that had really perfected the 2D linear platformer into 3D with non-linear level design, and they had to make efficient, snappy, and responsive movement in a dimension that had never before been used in a platformer of this scale. So yeah, no pressure. As soon as I started playing the game for the first time, something that shocked me was how similar the movement was to Super Mario Odyssey. The triple jump, the long jump, the side jump, the backflip, the dive, the ground and pound were all already here. They were not as smooth or as refined as Odyssey, as the complexity of which you can change these movements is reduced because of the absence of copy. But the fact that Miyamoto and his team were able to produce a movement system this sophisticated in Nintendo's first full-fledged attempt at a 3D platformer is nothing short of extraordinary. Now, this level is one of my favorite introductory levels in any platformer I have ever played. It is a perfect example of everything you will do for the remainder of the game. The red coins will encourage you to explore every inch of the level, this patch of grass will tell you how the transportation mechanic works, the cannonballs will teach you how to make Mario's hitbox smaller by shimming against the wall. The chain chomp will teach you how to position yourself effectively in a 3D environment. Koopa the Quick will test your basic knowledge of Mario's movement repertoire by forcing you to move efficiently. And if you come back later in the game, you will learn how the Wing Up Mario can recontextualize how you can explore levels by showing you new tools and secrets you can access. Now, this is gonna sound weird, but I need you to hear me out. This level reminded me of the opening village fight in RE4. In this fight you have to use stealth, parry, prioritize headshots to minimize your resource use throwables for crowd control as a means to escape, break boxes to gather resources, learn the faster combat flow compared to older RE games, and use environmental hazards to your advantage. While both of these have completely different gameplay, atmosphere, story, and are part of different genres, both of these introductory sections in both games effectively act as a microcosm and teach the player how to use all of the tools at their disposal in a way that so many games struggle to do this day. The fact that Mario 64, in its first level in 1996, in their first attempt at a 3D platformer, was able to teach the player how to use every single tool at their disposal is nothing short of incredible, and I think I really appreciate it more, and it really reminded me of RE4, and I hope that example makes sense. Well, sometimes the tone isn't that different. Big Boost Mansion is one of a handful of levels of Mario 64 that doesn't really conform to the norms of the platformer genre. These levels give off such a unique vibe and atmosphere, and it's partly constructed through the combination of the gameplay, level design, and music, but it's also a more intangible element. I think that the graphics and art direction of the N64 era gave off. But I think while I was playing this level, I really wondered what it would have felt like to have been a kid playing Mario in 1996 for the first time, and being suddenly transported to this level. If any of you in the comments had that experience, please let me know, because I am actually very interested to hear like what the first time experience would have been at the time of release. When you walk into this room, I thought Mario was going to play the piano, but then as you inch closer and closer and closer, it suddenly attacks you and you run into the next room when you suddenly have books flying towards you. And then you have to escape towards the next door and you're back at the beginning of the same maze. I was impressed that throughout the whole game it never once rested on its laurels and stick to the happy-go-lucky vibe that Mario is associated with, and instead experienced with different environments, gameplay mechanics, and music. I mean, just to watch and hear some of this and think how incredible playing this 30 years ago must have been. Something else that stood out to me while playing this game is that so much of modern game design in platformers is to reduce friction while emphasizing fluid, expressive movement. While some 2D platformers like Celeste did manage to combine excellent movement with difficult traversal, the majority do not have this tension as part of the game design, and that's something I loved about this game. Like when you're shimming up against a wall trying to go for the 100 coin stars, and you know if you fall, you will lose all of your progress, or when you're dodging incoming projectiles, and if you fall, you will fall into lava and die. I love that tension because it gave you such a sense of satisfaction when you did manage to complete these achievements. My favorite level in this game is Big Little Island. The concept is pretty simple. Mario traverses the island, and by jumping into warp pipes, he can transform his size relative to the island. It is a simple concept, but it opens up so many opportunities for creativity when you, for example, can open up a boss fight by doing a ground and pound as Big Mario, and you have to come back to the area as Little Mario to access a boss fight. And I think that creativity is so good because it takes such a small, compact space with the limitations of technology at this time, but uses it in different ways. So, yeah, I thought that was amazing. Now, at the start of the video, I said that Mario 64 holds up in more ways than you think. Now, what I meant by this is that somehow playing modern platformers will make you appreciate this game more because you will realize how much inspiration was taken from them from Mario 64. So, for example, Astro Ball feels like slowly constructing a Lego product. In each section you reach, another piece gets slowly added into the world. Every single level has an immense attention to detail and feels like a curated experience meant to celebrate PlayStation and the games that inspired them. Now, to take another experience like Donkey Kong Bonanza, it actually feels like having full access to a finished Lego product that you are free to smash and bend until there's barely anything left, constantly giving you new and interesting tools to increase the satisfaction that comes with smashing things. After coming back to these games after playing Super Mario 64, the influence becomes so clear. Donkey Kong Bonanza is a spiritual successor to Mario Odyssey, which itself is a spiritual successor to Super Mario 64, while Astrobot's endless interactivity and playground feel, from the structure of the game itself with the varied worlds and environments across different genres, is clearly inspired from a long line of 3D platformers that began with Super Mario 64. It doesn't hold up well just because of its own excellent gameplay and level design, but because if you have really played any 3D games of the 21st century, you will see the origin of so many of the ideas in Mario 64. But not just as a boring history lesson on game design, but as a fun, expressive experience that would want you to find every last secret in these worlds. The approach to freedom in this game is endless. So many of even my favorite games of all time feel like they punish a player when they don't follow the script and intended way of building the game. While Super Mario 64 gives you so many movement options and most importantly so many ways to chain these combinations together, like a side jump to a wall kick that lets you bypass the intended way of completion, that Miyamoto and his team traded a perfectly balanced experience for one that maximizes fun and creativity. I think if I take anything away from this game, is the value of creativity in games. From the start screen, to the entry of the castle, to before you even enter the level, Super Mario 64 is engulfed in creativity. It lets you take whatever path you want in whatever way you want to take it. You can carve your own path and find immersion solutions to the problems the game throws at you. The game wasn't scared to try new ideas, even if there was a chance they wouldn't have worked. And maybe there is something we can all take from that. So yes, Mario 64 still holds up in 2026. It is still worth playing in 2026, and if you haven't played it yet, do yourself a favor and play it too. For those of you who made it to the end, thank you very much for watching. This was actually my first video, so yeah, I'm still finding my way around this, but I welcome any of your opinions, especially if you're a lifelong Mario fan. What are your memories, experiences, stories? The game turns 30 years old this year, so there's no better time to celebrate it. Yeah, thank you for watching.